How's it going, everybody? Bryan, Alvarez, and Dave Meltzer here. Wrestling Observer Radio, February 8, 2022. Figure4online.com/wrestlingobserver.com. We got a lot of news to talk about here today. And Dave, do we have the awards issue coming out this week?
No. But it will be coming out pretty soon. But it won't be this week. It might be next week. The only problem is that I don't know where I'm going to have the time to do it next week. So it could be the week after. Although that's President's Day weekend, but whatever, it'll be out in the next couple of weeks, but it won't be out this week. I don't even have everything I won't have everything tabulated for a couple more days anyway.
All right. Well, you wanted to talk about them, so
yes, because the awards will be coming up in about probably about a week and a half. A lot of the it looks like. From what I've seen in other publications, that the Wrestler of the Year award, it seems to be Shingo Takagi, Kenny Omega, and Roman Reigns. I've seen have won in different publications or different places, and I think Bryan, Danielson, Punk are probably also people who would be under consideration, maybe Adam Page, I don't know. But I think that, Omega and Roman Reigns, it's interesting. Roman Reigns, obviously the top guy in WWE, champion all year long, start to the finish of the year, and did not have the match quality as Omega, certainly not Danielson or Omega. But biggest star of the biggest promotion. Takagi had the great match quality, probably the best of anyone. But New Japan didn't have a big year as a company at all, which was nobody's fault, but it's also a reality that, they got dealt a bad hand. But, it's like if a team gets dealt a bad hand, the star player doesn't necessarily win MVP if the team didn't have a good year. So in that sense, Omega did have championships in 3 different companies, world championships in AAA and Impact, and he definitely had his track record as a draw. Obviously, the Impact pay-per-view, the first pay-per-view did like their best number in years, and the TV ratings, obviously, the 18 to 49 number was way up during that title reign, and then collapsed as soon as Christian won the title. So, he was a big difference there. AEW had its best year by far, which wasn't only due to him, but he was the world champion almost the entire year when they, I think they did their 4 biggest pay-per-views in history during the year, and he was in the main event of, I think he was in the main event of all 4. The only thing is that, without a doubt, the all-out buy rate was not attributable to him. It was the big match was Punk and Darby Allin that set the record. And then the next one, the November one, I think you could argue it was Omega and Page was the big mover. But you could also argue it was Punk and Eddie Kingston. But either way, and that was the second biggest number they've ever done. So, so it's just kind of there. I know Utami Hayashida also got a lot of, is going to get a lot of support. She was champion almost the entire year. I think she won it in November of 2020, held it the entire year. It was Stardom's biggest year by far to date. She had some incredible matches during the year. I don't know that, so it's another candidate there. For the MMA, it's an interesting one because obviously the most valuable fighter, the most valuable business fighter to the company is Conor McGregor, but he didn't win any fights. And, usually MVP also has to do with winning your fights. So he's far and away, that's why you got best box office draw as a category for guys to be recognized that draw, but didn't win any of their fights. So, Kamaru Usman is, I guess Charles Oliveira would probably be, you'd have to talk about him as well, but Usman, I would think, would be the favorite for that. Most outstanding is an interesting dogfight. Takagi, Danielson, Omega, Will Ospreay. I think those would be. Ishii's always up there. I'm sure some people are going to vote for some of the women wrestlers. Tommy. So it's those would probably be the biggest candidates, I would say, in that one. Fighter of the year, that pretty much, I would say Usman and Oliveira. Valentina Shevchenko. She, has to be under consideration. She's completely dominated her division for years, and no one's even come close. It's kind of a weak division, but she also makes it an even weaker division because of how good she is. So, that's another one. Tag team of the year. What do you think?
It's the Young Bucks.
Yeah, I'm sure. I would say that they're the favorites. Young Bucks and Lucha Brothers. I wonder about Orton and Riddle. Maybe more this year than last year. Because they're, maybe not as winners, but they're really entertaining.
Well, I'm sure they'll get votes, but as far as the best tag team of the year?
Well, not the best matches for sure. Not even close.
Yes.
Yeah. I guess if you want to, the thing with the Young Bucks is that, like, it's so funny because it's like wrestling is so different from before. Before, when you're working 200, sometimes 300 matches a year, nobody could do 200, 300 matches a year the way the Young Bucks wrestle. They couldn't do it. Nobody can do it. It's a completely different world. But in the world that they are in now, where you do, maybe 25 matches a year, these guys, like, I've never seen anyone who every single time they're on, like people will talk about Ric Flair, and Ric Flair was in his day was a guy who had great matches. People will say great matches every time out, but that's not really true. He had great matches a lot, more than anyone. More than anyone, but it's not like Ric Flair never had a bad match when he had, a bad opponent or things like that, or, he was banged up or the schedule was hard. And he rarely had a bad match, but it's not like when you're doing 200, 300 matches a year, they're not all 4-star matches. So it's just, but I can't recall any team or individual that I would say every single time they're out there, it's like it's always a great match. Like with no, like almost no exceptions. I wonder if there's ever been like something where, like a lot of times, like people never really looked at the house shows in the old days. But when I would go to house shows, you might get, 2-3 really good matches on a, Crockett house show or a not so much WCW house show, but you might get like the mid card with Benoit, those guys, WCW house show, and then WWE house show. You might get one, maybe you get. I remember some had 2, but most of them are just by the numbers and just kind of get through. Because on that schedule, there's not really, you go traveling crisscross. I know it's funny because people, so it's like, it's incomparable. You can't compare it to other eras, but the one thing with the Young Bucks are that, like, I never see them, like for real, never see them in a bad match. Even like Okada had some bad matches this year. In Japan, even a guy like Shingo, who probably didn't have a bad singles match all year, although maybe he did wrestle, but rarely, but because everyone did in G1, but, a guy like him, you still have those tag matches that, New Japan tag matches where guys don't do a lot most of the time in those New Japan tag matches. They're kind of like days, you know what I mean? Whereas in AEW, you're going to have those really good tag matches. What do you think on best promo?
Punk, MJF. There's a lot of great promos in AEW, but
there are across wrestling.
Those are standouts.
Eddie Kingston, Punk for sure. Bryan Danielson, Cody Rhodes. Although sometimes when he gets booed, it kind of flusters him. But let me see, the Heyman, Don Callis. I mean, there's
Callis was awesome.
Don Callis was awesome. You know what hurt him is he disappeared when Omega left, and I think that hurts him at the end of the year. Where some of the other guys, Moxley, really Moxley was way up there too. But let me see what else. Promotion of the year. I already know who's going to win that. Okay, match of the year. What do you think was best match of the year?
Don't even ask. There's just too many. There's
so many that that's the one thing for this year is like when I talk to people who were when and again like in the Observer the last two issues we've had the voice of wrestling, which I think is like a lot of media guys given their lists and some fans, and then there was the Grapple, which is more fan oriented. Both lists are actually very similar, and I mean it's funny because I looked at both. And I believe that I had of the top 20 in Grapple, all 20 I had as 4 3/4 or above. So it was like there wasn't one in that top 20 that, I probably wouldn't have had like right up there in the top 20. And the other one was 19 out of the 20. There was actually one that I think I didn't give. I mean, it was over 4, but or maybe it was 4, but the rest of them were all like 4.5 and up. Yeah, I think actually there might have been a 4. There might have been a 4.5. Maybe one of those. The second Utami match with Shiori, which I gave 4.5, and was on the top 20 in both of those lists. I would say, every Will Ospreay and Takagi match this year was fantastic. The Young Bucks, Pentagon and Phoenix, Omega Adam Page. What were some of the other ones? The Tokyo Dome stuff. Let me get the grappling list. It's the top 20 was their top 20. Okay, so the thing is with them, it's like there's so many people who vote, and so many it's like the percentage points. Like if like Young Bucks and Pentagon and Phoenix is 4.80, Will Ospreay, Shingo Takagi is 4.79, and that's like that's like one thing out of like 100 people. It's like this virtually tie. So the big ones, I mean, all of them are big ones, but Young Bucks, Pentagon and Phoenix was first. Will Ospreay, Shingo Takagi, which would be the Wrestling Dontaku match, was second. Danielson and Kenny Omega was third. That was a fantastic match for sure. Walter and Ilya Dragunov, best WWE match of the year, I thought for sure. Bryan Danielson, Adam Page, the first, because the second one was this year. The two Shiori Utami matches, both of them are right after. Then Tanahashi, Shingo Takagi, which won Japanese match of the year, and those matches were fantastic. So much Shingo Takagi this year. Shingo Takagi, Jeff Cobb, Tokyo Dome. It's funny. I mean, it's like for sure. I thought that was a 5-star match, but I thought that there were two better matches on those two Tokyo Domes. The next one's Ospreay and Okada from the Tokyo Dome from last year. And this year's Tokyo Dome match I thought was better, but that match was incredible. Will Ospreay, Zack Sabre, which I believe that was the New Japan Cup match, I think. Kota Ibushi, Jay White, which was a phenomenal match. Also from that same Tokyo Dome. Shingo Takagi and Ishii, which is the G1 match, that match was incredible. The other Takagi Will Ospreay from New Japan Cup. The match, this is a match from Australia. It was Aussie Open and Jude London and Paris Silva. Did you see that match?
No.
Okay, so that match was tag match. I mean, it's absolutely worth seeing if you've never seen it. It's on, God, I think it was Pro Wrestling Australia. I think it was the promotion, and I'm sure people will correct me if I'm wrong, but it was, but I remember watching, it went very, very long and may have gone too long. It was one of those matches that you would see on an indie show where it's kind of like guys do, you know how there's matches where guys are just going like, I'm going to like do every move I know, and I'm going to have the best independent match that I can have. And that's kind of like when I watched this match, it was kind of like that. But the thing is that they worked together so well. And there was like absolutely mind-boggling stuff with like Paris de Silva was just incredible in this match. And the crowd heat was fantastic. So, it's kind of like when people will, like there will be people who would look at, it finished 15th and, on a fan-voted match of the year thing. So obviously people who saw it must have loved it, and I loved it. But I did think it went, I don't want to say it went too long, but it could have gone shorter in the sense that there were points in the match because they went so long where I was kind of going, you went too long, but then they would get it back and they would get more heat and everything like that. Moves wise, like, it was a super, super moves match. Like if you're into moves, it was great, but the crowd was into it in a huge, huge, huge way. And at the end of the day, it's like whatever style, if it works for the crowd, then it works. I mean, I don't like, like thumbing my nose at, and saying, oh, they didn't do it the way I liked, but the crowd loved it, so therefore the crowd's wrong. You know what I mean? I mean, it's one of those, it's not my style, but it was fantastic. And deserved where it got. I mean, it deserves to be considered, I wouldn't say like top 3 match of the year, but, just absolutely should be watched if it's a match you should go out of your way to watch. Britt Baker, Thunder Rosa, the Lights Out match, which it was a phenomenal match. I mean, and I actually thought it would finish higher just because I thought that the uniqueness of the match, you know what I mean, would make it stand out to people. And it actually won in Pro Wrestling Illustrated Match of the Year, although it only took 16th here. Then 17 and 18 were Keno and Nakajima from Noah, the March match and the October match. And I mean, Noah's another one where it's like if it's your cup of tea, if you like watching guys out there just kicking each other so hard in the chest and in the back and in the legs and, hard forearms and all that stuff. You love really hard hitting stuff. I mean, these matches are incredible. I'm not like, I don't know. It's like, I don't dislike them, but it's like, I don't love them because it's almost like, it's almost like I watch and go like, they hit him so hard. And it's not like it's a negative, but that's all they do. It's just like they'll go out there for 35 minutes and just beat the shit out of each other. And it's amazing to watch, but it's like they're just beating the shit out of each other. Now the July Tanahashi Takagi, which, Hiroshi Tanahashi is unbelievable. And then tied for 20th were Ibushi Naito from the Tokyo Dome, another great match. And this is not Observer, by the way. The Observer Awards will be probably, I wouldn't say like similar. I mean, probably similar. I mean, I wouldn't say like there'll be different ones, but I would bet you have these top 20, like probably 10, 15 would make top 20 in the Observer Awards, I'm going to guess, just because these are the matches that, people like the most and everything. But Danielson, Suzuki, and Ibushi and Naito. So those were like the big ones. So those would be the top awards. But I don't know. Any awards you think WWE should get? Besides, like, worst, whatever.
Well,
and I wouldn't even give them more. I wouldn't. You know what's funny is like, I'm sure WWE, because it always happens, may win worst promotion. But my God, CMLL was fucking horrible this year. I mean, it's like, I know a lot of people didn't see it, but it's like, even if you just read about it, I mean, it's like, CMLL was so terrible this year. So anyway.
Well, we'll discuss the awards when they come out. About 2 weeks, everybody, hopefully, and we'll go through all of them there. I expect WWE will win a bunch of worst awards, but I don't think worst promotion would be a fair one to give.
Yeah, I don't
WWE
think
as they surpass $1 billion in revenues for that year.
Yeah,
I mean that's the point of the promotion.
Yeah,
I mean the television sucks and the booking is horrible. So if you want to give them worst booker Vince McMahon and worst TV show Raw or NXT whatever, I mean that's all fine. But
I'll tell you the NXT show for much of the year I liked it, but
from September on it was the worst show.
It's without a doubt of anything that I've seen. Yeah. But yeah, I don't know. Women Wrestler of the Year, but I don't think anyone from WWE's will win Women Wrestler of the Year this year.
Doubtful.
Yeah, Bailey won it last year. I figure it's Britt and Utami. And that's going to be an interesting one because Stardom's got a lot of people vote for Stardom stuff, and I can see why. I mean, they put on a good show, but obviously Britt's got a huge edge because she's on American television, and that's going to give you a big edge, I mean, and WWE would give you a big edge if they had the standout this year, which, I mean, they really didn't. The ones who got pushed, I mean, Becky was gone most of the year and then she came back as a heel and really, she could have been it, but she was fighting the fans. I don't think Charlotte Flair had a great year. She was pushed like she had a great year, but I don't think she had a great year at all. Sasha Banks was out a lot of the year. Took time off. Bianca Belair is very good and a fantastic athlete, but, I think Utami as an athletic pro wrestler is much better she couldn't beat her in a track meet, but and better trained and with far less experience. I mean, it's not like, working as a main eventer and a world champion and helping build a promotion, which she did. She was one of the keys in building that company this year.
All right, Wednesday we've got Dynamite, and there is at least one new wrestler who will be debuting in the ladder match qualifier. And this person, according to Tony Khan, is going to debut and sign a contract with the company.
Is that what he's saying?
Yes.
Okay, so there's not really a lot of options if you really think about it, because most of the names that people have mentioned cannot sign a contract right now. Johnny Gargano could. Keith Lee could. There's several women who could, except they're not going to be wrestling. The person signing contracts wrestling Isaiah Cassidy, right?
Yes, and he specified that the big announcement for Wednesday's Dynamite that they reference on Rampage, a free agent debut, and the person walking through the forbidden door are one and the same. They're walking in the door, signing a contract, and slamming the door shut Wednesday on Dynamite. So he is saying there is one person.
Okay, so if that's the case, I think it's Keith Lee and Johnny Gargano are probably about the only ones, right? Who else could it even be? Because John Hennigan's non-compete is not up yet. Jeff Hardy could not come until, I believe, in fact, I know Jeff Hardy cannot come until March 9th. So it's not March 9th. I know a lot of people are going, it's going to be Jeff Hardy. It's not. Jeff Hardy is not even allowed to legally talk to AEW until March 9th. John Hennigan is not even legally allowed to talk to AEW. Keith Lee is legally allowed to talk to AEW, and he could be him. Gargano obviously has been able to legally talk to AEW since, the last takeover where he had his last match. So, or right.
Well, listen, I'm not saying it's not Johnny Gargano, but I feel that why would you not have debuted Johnny Gargano in his hometown and just do it on this show?
Yeah, I don't think
it seems more likely that it would be Keith Lee.
Yeah, I think so too. I think because Johnny Gargano, I don't think his wife has given birth, and I know she's due like any, it could be any day now, because I seem to remember it's February, and we are actually in the month of February, and I can't even imagine that he sat out this long, and then he's going to go in February, you know what I mean, and leave. I mean, it's like, and fly out of Orlando. I mean, I just don't even, I mean, look, it's possible. It wouldn't shock me or nothing like that, but it's like, I kind of don't think that Johnny Gargano's going to come until she gives birth. And he said that. He said, like, whatever he's going to do, wherever he's going to go, it's going to be, he's waiting for her to give birth. And I'm going to guess he'd probably stay home, I mean, I don't know how long, but it could be whatever, a week or 2 or 3 before he's going to want to go back on the road. So I would not think it's him. And there's not, I mean, Killer Cross is also a possibility. His non-compete just ended. He's the other one. But, I mean, I was going to say that, like, he didn't really do all that well on the main roster, but then neither did Keith Lee, for that matter. So, which, not to say whatever, I mean, there's a lot of issues and everything like that. And they both could have done, I mean, they were both doomed to fail the way they were booked. And they were both doomed to fail the way the mentality of the company is as well. So, that's just kind of how it was. I have heard, the other name that I've heard, a bunch, is not a bunch, but a little bit today is Jay White. So I don't know that he's coming in or not, but, that was an interesting name to hear.
Well, I mean, Seattle and the New Japan Strong show last week.
Los Angeles. I
mean, every show when he does his open challenge, I mean, he does the promo afterwards and he mentions AEW every single time.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that necessarily means he's coming in Wednesday, but I mean, there's got to be something behind him dropping their promotion's name on every single show that he gets a live mic at.
It gets him buzzed to do it, and he has been working a lot on Impact. So, whatever. But I mean, there's no reason that he can't do both. The nature of the business today, it's not like there's exclusivity or anything in New Japan. New Japan works with both companies, so that's another interesting name. But the thing is that he would not sign a AEW contract. So it couldn't be, if the guy is coming in to sign a contract, I don't think that's going to be Jay White, because I think he's got to deal with New Japan, and he's advertised for, all the New Japan, or I think pretty much all the New Japan shows in the United States anyway. I mean, he hasn't gone back to Japan. At some point I would, whatever. I mean, it's too bad he hasn't gone back. But, it is what it is.
So that's your show as Hangman Page, Lance Archer, Texas Death Match for the title. MJF will appear. Isaiah Cassidy versus whoever this person is going to be in a Face of the Revolution qualifier. Inner Circle team meeting and, Tony Khan's major announcement.
So we're going to be, the Face of the Revolution ladder match, that would be on the pay-per-view then.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's, now, okay, yeah.
All right, take us through these ratings.
I mean, there's not a lot to talk about. Ratings are going to be down because of the Olympics. That's just how it is, and they were. SmackDown wasn't down that much, but it was Ronda Rousey announcing that she was going to make a decision. So that probably alleviated, some of the decline. It was like there was something big, there. They did. They were actually only down a little bit. They were 2,151,000 viewers, so they were down 3% viewers. They were down 9% in 18 to 49, 13% in 18 to 34. So they were down a little bit, due to the Olympics, and then Rampage was down more than a little bit, especially with women. The Olympics, the Olympics are very, I don't want to say very female oriented, but more women watch the Olympics than men. Just on cable, it was whatever it was, high 50s in women, and network was a little closer. It was like 52-48. It was 56-44 on cable, 51-49 in on the NBC, and that's unusual because most sports, are very much male. So the Olympics are going to hurt the women viewers. So Rampage was 74% male, which is very, very high, which is not a good thing. And that also tells you where the drop, the main, the big drop was women. Guys were down too, but the big drop was women. And it's nothing you can go in there and combat. You can't combat the Olympics. You know what I mean? It's too big. But they did not have what I would call, like I said before, they did not have a good marquee show. Adam Cole, Evil Uno was quick, and Evil Uno, who Evil Uno is a very talented guy, but he has not been pushed. And then you got Sammy Guevara and Isaiah Cassidy, which was a very good match, and Sammy Guevara should have some steam behind him coming off the Cody match, but I don't think anyone saw Isaiah Cassidy as someone who's going to win the title. Thunder Rosa Mercedes Martinez. It was a fine match before the finish, but that's not really what I would call a marquee match. It is a grudge match to a point. In the main event, Ricky Starks, Jay Lethal, which is a very good match also, but again, it's like you didn't have any of the big guns, wrestling on the show and going against everything. So they did 540,000 viewers and 0.20. They were still third. They were seventh. Was it seventh in the night or eighth? Seventh in the night, which is, for a 10 o'clock show, is really good. They were third in the time slot. Obviously, they lost. There was an NBA game that went head-to-head, which beat them handily, and the Olympics on USA Network also beat them, but they beat everything else on cable. So, it's like, but a lot of the demos, like they were 29th in women 18 to 49. Usually, they're not going to win or even usually they might usually be around 10th. So they lost more women than a lot of other shows, I guess, is like the key to the whole thing. They're, and some of it's the Olympics and some of it may just be that, they unlike WWE, which did have a hook, and I don't mean hook, but they did have a hook with Rousey's statement and everything like that. And it being on Fox, which is prime real, that's prime real estate. AEW did not have that. And of course tonight, the thing that's going to be interesting is I wonder about the DVR numbers tonight, because I had to reset my DVR to get the show tonight. And I don't know if that was the case with everyone, but I know it was the case with many, many people. And if you didn't know that ahead of time and just kind of relied on the DVR, you would miss the show. So, I'm wondering how that is going to, that does not really impact the, it does impact the first day a little bit. It impacts the DVR number more, but there is, like a percentage of people who will watch that thing on delay on DVR the night. So it is counted on the overnight, number. Just because it was moved to Sci-Fi, unfamiliar channel, it should be among the lowest. It could be the lowest ever, and if it is, so what? It doesn't mean anything. The fact that we're in WrestleMania season may have kept it from being an all-time low, but it could be an all-time low. With the channel change is going to make a big difference, so that's going to be the case. I do think that NXT tomorrow is probably going to do a really low number, like under 500,000 viewers. There's a good chance. They did a 0.10 on Sci-Fi before, and which is the lowest that they've ever done, and that was when they were stronger than they are now. So they could be below a 0.10 tomorrow for NXT. And what Raw is, and at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. It's like it doesn't mean a trend. It doesn't mean anything. It's just a curiosity, and it's not anything that we should even count. But yeah, the numbers for everyone for the next 2 weeks should be down. And the Monday and Tuesday numbers in particular, you could just throw out because those numbers, you're on an unfamiliar station. Next week should be better than this week, though. Generally, when you're on an unfamiliar station, the first week is going to be tough, and then the second week might there will people who will figure out that they need to DVR it when they get mad that they didn't this week, or people who just whatever, get a little more familiar with figuring out where sci-fi is on their thing if they've never watched sci-fi before. So, that's the situation there.
Should mention before we do the Raw report that Bryan Danielson, the second act to go into the Ring of Honor Hall of Fame after the Briscoes. So he's going in, and we've got 2 more that will be announced soon.
Yeah, so I would say, to me, it won't be some of these people, but to me, people who, number one, Kerry Sulkin should be one of the 4.
But he's not going to be because they're all wrestlers.
Yeah, and Gabe Sapolsky should be also as well. As far as wrestlers go that aren't in, I could see Samoa Joe, CM Punk, Nigel McGuinness, I'm trying to think, Jay Lethal, because the Briscoes are in. Is there anyone I'm missing? Young Bucks as a team. Because they were very valuable the strongest that company ever was the Young Bucks period when they were the top act. So those are the ones that come to my mind. Danielson to me, like if I was going to pick one wrestler, I can only pick one wrestler for the Ring of Honor Hall of Fame, it would be Danielson. But Joe would come right after him. And Punk wouldn't be far behind either.
Well, let's talk about this Raw and Sci-Fi here. The first hour, no commercials. And that was a long hour for somebody that usually watches it and skips the commercials.
I'll tell you what, the show felt long tonight.
Well, it was.
Yeah, it just felt long. By the end when they were doing the main event, it was like, God, it wasn't even bad. Like the main event, it was fine, but maybe it's the no commercials. Obviously the 2 key things is that because WWE will get screwed in the ratings in some form, because it's going to be lower. How much lower, who knows? No one does until tomorrow. But they did, give them an hour commercial free, and they also did, side-by-side picture, which they do in NXT and AEW does on both shows, but Raw never does, and SmackDown never does either. So it is interesting that they did this for the first time, and it was almost kind of weird watching it because I'm just not used to it. The one thing about Raw, I enjoy the commercial breaks on Raw. Number one, because if I'm watching behind, I can catch up, and if I'm watching live, I can do something else and break up the monotony of the show because it is a monotonous show very often. So, not having the commercials, I guess it's a positive, but it wasn't as much of a positive as I thought it would be. I was kind of like, man, I need a break from this thing. And the thing is like they say no commercials, but they did in-house commercials.
It was like watching pay-per-view on Peacock, where if you pay $4.99, you get commercials. And allegedly, if you pay the $9.99, you don't get commercials. But you actually do get commercials. You get these random video packages that have nothing to do with anything that are sitting there in the place of the commercials. So you're getting commercials one way or the other. It's just, what kind of commercials do you want to watch? Do you want to watch a, whatever, Bobby Lashley training video, which they did a couple of...
They did do that, yeah. Well, at least they did it before the Lesnar match, which made sense.
They did, but the first time I saw it was like over a month ago when he was still like a heel. There's this babyface
when they did the big thing on the pay-per-view where it was totally out of context.
Yes.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, I'm just watching this going like, what? This is like, I guess we should have just looked at it and gone, okay, he's turning babyface, but it's like they don't really turn people baby. It's like I guess he's a babyface, and tonight because he was in Denver, he was clearly a babyface. He still got MVP there. And it's still like it, I don't know. I thought, here's another thing. And I don't know, maybe he's banged up. I don't know. I mean, if I'm booking this show and the world champion's from Denver, I'm for sure putting him in a match on this TV show somehow, just to do it with the idea these people would go crazy and let him get a win in his hometown. You know what I mean? Even if it's just 3 minutes squashing Shelton Benjamin. I mean, it's like, could that be any worse of a waste of time than Liv Morgan and not Liv Morgan and Doudrop, but Nikki and Bianca? I mean, what would be better for the show? Bobby Lashley, the world champion? You know what I mean? You know, beating Cedric or God knows who. There should be 20 different guys on the roster you can put in him, have him go in there for 3 minutes with. And, I mean, it's his hometown. And they told you it was his hometown. And then he comes out and does the promo and whatever.
Well, the show opened up with a great segment. It was the, whatever they were calling it, the Quiz Bowl.
The Quiz Bowl.
With Randy Orton.
This was really entertaining, yeah.
It was Randy Orton and Riddle against Chad Gable and Otis. And it was kind of like, sort of like Jeopardy. They put the question up on the screen. You had to answer the question. If you got it wrong, the other team got a chance to answer the question. And if they got it right, they got the point. So Chad Gable's out there, and he's just been fantastic in all of these. And so there's 9 categories. And since Gable and Otis won the scooter race, they get to go first. So Gable chooses U.S. President, and the question is, who was the first to be elected office with a college degree? And he picks John Adams, since he's also a man with a college degree, and so they get a point. So Riddle chooses biology. They ask how many hearts an octopus has. He had a buddy who dissected an octopus when they were kids, and so he knows the answer is 3 hearts, and so he's correct. So Gable chooses Greek mythology. He knows that Icarus flew too close to the sun, so it's now 2-1. Orton chose cartoons. They get a question about the Ninja Turtles correct, so it's now 2-2. And then we've got Otis choosing geography. Question is, which is the biggest of the 48 continental states? He chooses Texas, which is correct, and so he gets a point.
That's an easy one.
Well, so then RK Bro gets to go, and the question is about the Baldwins, and he has absolutely no idea.
Oh, the one, the father-in-law of Justin Bieber?
May have been.
Yeah.
No, Justin Bieber's wife.
Yeah, the father-in-law.
Yes.
Yeah.
So he has no idea about any of this, and the only Baldwin he knows is Alec Baldwin, so he guesses him, and he loses. And so Gable gets it right, so it's now 4-2 for the Alpha Academy. So then Gable says films and movies, and it's a question about Shakespeare. And he's going to answer the question. All of a sudden, one of the options is Hamlet. And Otis goes, Ham! And Gable goes, Otis, be quiet. I'm going to get this one right. And so he's ranting, and then Otis goes, Ham again. And he's, Otis, be quiet. So he guesses Romeo and Juliet, and he's wrong. And then Riddle guesses Hamlet, and he's right. And now Otis is furious. I said that, he says.
So the people in the crowd did too.
So it's now 4-3, and this is where I thought this segment was almost perfect, but it wasn't quite perfect. So it's sports, and the question is, which quarterback threw the most touchdowns in team history?
Denver Broncos history.
Yes.
Wasn't it the most wins? Quarterback with the most wins?
Regardless, Orton says he starts pulling the crowd, and of course the crowd picks John Elway. And so now Otis and Gable are furious. You can't ask the crowd. That's not fair.
The crowd was screaming who it was.
Yes. So then the next question is metric.
By the way, you know that I grew up like not, I won't say down the street, but sort of down the street from John Elway.
Wow.
Yeah.
So the next question is metric conversions. And this is where I thought, I don't want to say they fucked up the segment, but like this was so easy and they didn't do it. So it's metric conversions, and the question is, how many grams are in an ounce? And it's Chad Gable's turn. He should have asked the crowd, and one of two things is going to happen. They're either going to lie and screw him, which would have been awesome, or if the fans happen to be telling the truth, Then Chad Gable has to go, I don't believe these fans, and he has to pick something else, and then he's wrong. It would have been perfect because Riddle had help from the fans, and I thought it would have been awesome if they would have gone to Gable, and he tried to get help from the fans, but then he got fucked because he tried to go to the fans. But anyway, he got it wrong, and Orton correctly guesses 28 grams because, and Orton screwed up his line, by the way, because he told Riddle, he's supposed to say to Riddle, you're not the only one who cooks, because he makes, weed cookies. But instead he said, I'm not the only one who cooks. So he actually screwed up the line, but the fans knew what he was trying to say, so they laughed. And they won, and so they have won this series here. They're going to get a championship match, I presume, in Elimination Chamber.
No. Riddle's in Elimination Chamber. It's going to be in TV
Oh, that's
later.
right. I guess it'll be whenever.
Yeah.
Anyway, they'll get a title shot at some point.
Yeah. It made perfect sense for them to then lose the main event.
Yeah, don't even get me started.
I want to tell you something. Okay, so on SmackDown, we didn't talk about SmackDown. So there was the match. Okay, so Viking Raiders on Elimination Chamber are wrestling the Usos.
Oh, this stupid match?
I could not. I mean, like, even with WWE, and I have incredible leniency to WWE because I know that nothing matters and everything like that. But I watched that match with Jimmy Uso and Eric, and it's like a 2-minute squash. Jimmy Uso beats him with like a super kick and a splash off the top, and it's like, what the fuck? I mean, it's like, I can't even. I could not even, like, in any way. I mean, they may go in there and go, well, next week Ivar will beat Jay. Maybe he will and maybe he won't. So they're even. It's like, the problem is, it's not even that Jimmy won. Although that's a problem. Jimmy never should have won this match. Eric should have won the match. Because you've got to get these challenges over because they're not over. But even if, you want to do something where it's like there's... you want to put Jimmy over and Jay distracts and it's 2-on-1 and they cheat and they win to build a little heat. You could do that, okay? They didn't do that either. This was a 2-minute match and he just super kicks him. And it's like he made Eric look like a job guy. And these are the guys who are getting a tag team title shot. And the challengers going for a championship should not be losing on TV to the champions unless, it's... you're building to a title change and as you're building the rematch ahead of time. But even if they're doing that in this case, it shouldn't be a 2-minute match. I mean, this was just, there was a couple of things on that SmackDown show, but that were ridiculous when it came to the booking. But this was just like, and again on the Tonight Show, it's the same thing. It's just like, I'm watching some of the stuff that they're doing and it's like, I mean, I know the answer to the question. It's a rhetorical question. Are they booking to not get people over? And, of course, the answer is yes. But it's just like, that's so frustrating because it's like, why did Austin Theory why did Austin Theory lose to Kevin Owens when Austin Theory is in the pay-per-view main event and Kevin Owens isn't even on this pay-per-view? And then Kevin Owens won again over the tag team champions or the tag team championship contenders that are hot. And it's like, what is this?
Dude, you're asking the wrong guy because I have no leniency to this company. I think it's just complete incompetence. We had Alpha Academy and Street Profits, 5 minutes, and at least Alpha Academy won this match. Gable rolled up Dawkins and pinned him.
Yeah, he blocked. It was a cool finish. Gable had he was going for the ankle lock, and then he got kicked off by Dawkins, and he kind of blocked the kickoff and turned it into a cradle. It was kind of a unique way to win, unique setup for a win. I thought that was pretty clever.
We had a bunch of video packages and this and that. Bobby Lashley and MVP came out. We talked about this. Lashley's there in his hometown, a huge ovation, and they just talked. And talked about Lesnar and the Elimination Chamber match, and he said he looked forward to wrestling Reigns.
Yeah, the interesting thing with
actually, Lesnar was going to wake up in the hospital and look forward to wrestling Reigns.
Yeah, the thing that's interesting is in his promo, he basically blew off everyone in that match, and basically said it's going to be him and Lesnar, and just kind of it's like the other guys were almost like afterthoughts in the match.
Well, that's what's going to happen, I would presume. We had, oh my God, these Alexa Bliss segments. So the first segment, she got the doll last week. It's a replica. She has to give it back. She cries. I was like, thank God, at least it was short and we have to watch it again. But then they had part 2 later on in the show, which is her talking about all these times that she was going to get angry, but then she took a deep breath and then felt better. But then there was something in the store where she beat somebody up.
She attacked a woman with rainbow hair because she cut in line at the checkout stand.
Yeah. So the guy goes, "We still have a lot of work to do." I'm like, who's getting back first? You or Veer?
This is dreadful.
Horrible.
Yeah, Veer worked again tonight.
Yeah, but he's still coming soon, according to all of this here.
Well, they got to pick. They got to get a lot of clips of him beating T-Bar. Yeah. That's what he seems to always work with.
Then we had AJ Styles and Damian Priest. Damian Priest, they didn't make a big deal of this, but he was undefeated for a full year. Now he has lost 4 straight matches.
Yeah, and not only that, he still hasn't beaten Kevin Owens, and then it seemed to just turn the feud into AJ Styles and drop Kevin Owens.
Yeah. Yeah, this is what happens when they find out you're undefeated, I guess. Doing this guy no favors. The match was, it was a fun match. It was only 5 minutes. Finish look cool. He went running, and Styles hit the phenomenal form out of nowhere for the pin. But, I mean, the story of this show and every show, it's like, how many times have you told me this, Dave? Oh, they know they need to push these young... They know they need to make young stars.
I hear is like...
let's beat Damian Priest with AJ Styles.
Damian Priest is 39 years old.
So he's new.
He is new. It's true. He is new.
He's new. No one knows he's 39.
Yeah.
What about Austin Theory losing to Kevin Owens?
Dude, there is no explanation.
How about Raquel Gonzalez getting squashed by Raquel Gonzalez last week?
Wait, how did she get squashed by herself?
Raquel squashed Cora Jade.
Cora Jade. Yeah, well.
Another one.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm not surprised that Raquel squashed Cora Jade. That is how they think, but...
we had a New Day beating Los Lotharios.
Yeah, but they should
if we had one young person in this company get a win anytime recently...
Yeah, Austin Theory beat Kevin Owens
and then he lost to him.
Hey, look, I could not agree more. What was the point? I don't even know what the point of the... Well, his win got him into the chamber. But why?
Yeah, so he could do a job in the chamber. Probably first out, I would guess.
That's probably true, too. The thing is like, I got nothing against Kevin Owens beating Austin Theory after the Elimination Chamber match, but not before. Or if Kevin Owens is actually going to replace him, but he's not. Like, when he won, it's like, okay, maybe like... Kevin Owens agreed to go to Saudi Arabia, okay? Because, if it wasn't for that, he should be in the chamber and not Austin Theory, okay? I mean, he's further advanced. He's a much better wrestler, much more over, okay? So maybe if he says, you know what, I got this great new contract, I'll go to Saudi Arabia. And he said it and then this week, and Vince just goes, you know what, I changed my mind. So and then he beats Austin Theory. That makes perfect sense. Okay, Vince changed his mind. Let's rectify it. But no, he wins, and they go, you're not in it. You're not going. So I think he's still not going. I mean, I got every impression he's not going. So why did he win? I mean, that made no sense at all, beating Austin Theory. And not only that, it wasn't even like, okay, he cradled Austin Theory. I mean, he beat him with a stunner. It's not like Austin Theory jumped up and attacked him afterwards. Nothing of the sort. It was just he beat him, because the reason he did was probably because he's coming back for the main event, and you want to. But you know what? If he was going to be in the main event, he probably shouldn't even wrestle on the show. This match didn't even need to be on the show. Other than the only thing it did was it made sure that whatever momentum Austin Theory got for beating Kevin Owens is now non-existent, which is exactly what booking is not supposed to accomplish. It's supposed to accomplish, you're supposed to come up with booking to get people over, not to, start to get them over and then make sure that they don't get over by beating them at the wrong time before they're in the pay-per-view main event. It's like if Austin Theory wasn't in the pay-per-view main event, it still would have been dumb for him to, for him to lose to Kevin Owens the week after beating him in this situation. But the fact that Austin Theory is in the pay-per-view main event or the chamber match. It was just whatever. That was far from the only one, but that just made no sense.
Right to a Seth Rollins, Kevin Owens interview segment. Owens doesn't really trust Rollins, but Rollins says, "You can believe me." I mean, we hadn't had a commercial yet. So we get to the top of the hour, and I thought, finally, we're going to get a commercial on this show. But no, it's Miz TV with Miz, Maurice, and the Mysterios. And literally, I'm dying for a commercial break, but they're talking about how Miz is a cheater. And Miz says, "I'm not a cheater."
And the fans chanted cheater at him.
And they chant cheater, and he says, I'm like, oh my God, dude. So finally, it ends with Dominic getting in Miz's face, telling him to respect his father. Miz makes a comment about, "You are taller than Ray, maybe you are Eddie's son." And Dominic punches out Miz, and so we've got a rematch from last week. After all that talking, they go 1 minute and 40 seconds, and Dominic ends up schoolboy pinfall on Miz. By the way, 1 minute and 40-second match that Maurice got ejected from as part of that 1 minute and 40 seconds.
And then Ray
tripped Miz to lead to the finish.
Well, it was retribution from last week. I mean, the spots were all, like that aspect of it with Maurice getting kicked out, and then all that was like the poetic justice. So that was.
So we did get a young guy going over, actually, in a 1 minute and 40-second match where a minute of it was someone getting ejected.
Okay, but the thing is like, Dominic Mysterio winning means nothing because you know full well, like Austin Theory, they may push. Dominic Mysterio, it's like, he's never going to be, they're never going to push him past a certain level. Maybe in a tag team, they'll do something with him, but it's not like, oh my God, they're going to start to push him to like be, one of the top tier guys like in 2 years. It's just not going to happen.
Bianca Belair and Nikki Ash, they went 4 minutes, KOD, and kind of sloppy, actually. They were having some problems. They tried to get the heat by having Nikki yank her leg out on the apron, and then it took them forever to finally get the spot done. So, a lot of talking and short matches here on this show.
I noticed from watching both shows this week that, and last week a little bit too, it seems like how the philosophy always changes. It seems like the new philosophy is that you may get like your one main event where you got time, and you get like maybe, a match or two here that may go 8 to 11 minutes, but most of the stuff is 4 minutes or, 4 minutes and down. It seems like they feel that, just breeze through that wrestling stuff and do lots of talking. And time will tell. I mean, like Vince will change his mind and he'll, at some point and go back to another format at some point. He always does.
We had Truth Tamina Tozawa running around backstage. Dana and Reggie had a moment. She gave him a kiss. He's all smitten. She says we're just friends, but then they gaze at each other's lips, and then they start running off again. So for this week, at least, we've got a romance storyline starting.
Great.
Kevin Owens beat Austin Theory, 10-minute match. I mean, it was good. Kevin Owens is a good worker and did a good job with Theory, but stunner, boom, 1, 2, 3. That was the end of Austin Theory. We had Riddle and Orton talking. They're going to do a toga party next week. What a coincidence that is. We had Lita and Becky doing a segment. So Lita comes out, and Becky interrupts and starts talking about how you were my teenage idol. When I first came to this company, you had my back. There wouldn't be a Becky Lynch without Lita. But she says now there is a Becky Lynch, and so there's no more use for you, Lita. And she's appalled that her idol would want to take the title away from her. She actually said, as a mother, that this belt was the most important thing in her life. I don't buy that for 1 second.
I don't either.
And they got in a brawl, and Lita hit her with the Twist of Fate, which was 1,000 times better than both that she's hit Charlotte with. And then she went up top.
Yeah, but in getting into it, it wasn't pretty.
No.
I mean, the move itself looked fine, but the getting into the move wasn't pretty at all.
And then she went up top, and they actually gave away the moonsault here. So,
well, she's not going to win the championship with it.
Well, no, but it would have been a cool near fall.
Well, it still can be a cool near fall. It's not like she kicked out of it and ruined it. You know, it's like she did the moonsault and it was over, and they can still do it in the match and have her kick out. So that's fine.
They always do this, though. It's like
I was just glad that she. I mean, the one thing is that like it's sort of a test for her. You know, if she can pull it off fine, and she pulled it off fine.
They always do these things where they start a tease, which seems like it's a smart tease, and they just don't do it. Like, she went up for the moonsault at the Royal Rumble, and she got thrown off. And I thought, all right. Then they announced that she's going to face Becky. And so I thought, okay, well, she went up for the moonsault. She got thrown off, so they're going to tease it, and then she'll finally hit it at the pay-per-view. Nope, just hit it in the angle. Doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter. You know, she can hit it in the pay-per-view again. Doesn't matter.
We had a preposterous segment where Adam Pearce and Sonya Deville tried to tell Kevin Owens, we may not have a spot for you at a 2-night WrestleMania.
Yeah.
Whatever.
And Kevin Owens is now an honorary Texan.
Yeah. Doudrop and Liv Morgan.
Kevin Von Erich. That's what he should change his name to.
They gave these two 8 minutes. And
did you hear the people chanting CM Punk?
They did chant CM Punk early. I don't even know why. It was like the match just started. There was nothing wrong with it. But they decided.
But it was boring though.
And finally, Doudrop won with a Vader bomb, beater. They had a couple of cool near falls there at the end. Next week we got Damian Priest, AJ Styles for the title coming up tonight.
At least it makes sense. That makes the win make sense.
Yep. Toga Party and the appearance from Brock Lesnar, who I do not think will be a part of the Toga Party.
No.
Then we had Riddle and Seth Rollins, and they went 7 minutes, and it was good. I mean, it was fine. And all of a sudden, Kevin Owens just runs in and attacks Riddle for the DQ. So they go to commercial, and they come back, and of course, it is a tag match. Rollins and Owens versus Riddle and Randy Orton. Just beat on Riddle forever. He finally gives a hot tag to Randy Orton. Randy makes his big comeback, and in the melee, Rollins... what happened here? Rollins blocks the RKO.
He gave Riddle a curb stomp.
Yep, Riddle tags himself in, and then he eats the curb stomp and is pinned in the middle of the ring. Because of course they beat RK Bro, since they just won the right to challenge for the tag team titles.
Yep.
Yeah, the show felt like a show on Sci-Fi.
I guess. I mean, I was entertained at the beginning of the show, but...
Yeah, the first segment was great, but after that it was just like, talk, short match, talk, short match.
They're not even great. The talking segments weren't that good either. That's the other thing. It's like none of the promos were memorable. I mean, MVP, it's like, you know, he did a good delivery. I mean, you know, but his material was nothing special. You know, just... And I mean, it's like it was weird because it's like... They were hot for Lashley, but they weren't on fire for Lashley like you expect this hometown world champion. And they really could have and should have promoted the thing around like last week that, you know, we're coming to Bobby Lashley's hometown and make it a big, like what they did with MJF in Long Island, and try to do something like that. And probably would have sold more tickets too if they'd done that.
Well, before we go, they got the NXT show tomorrow, and we have Mandy Rose versus Kaylee Ray for the NXT Women's title, which they're going to air commercial-free.
That's not necessarily a good thing.
No. We've got Braun Breaker, Santos Escobar at a championship summit. We've got MSK versus Malik Blade and Edris Enofe semifinal match. Creed Brothers versus Grizzled Young Vets semifinal match. Sarai versus Dakota Kai, Wendy Chu versus Tiffany Stratton, and LA Knight and Sangha. Oh, my.
LA Knight and Sangha is going to be interesting. I'm interested in the Creed Brothers match because Grizzled Young veterans are very good. But like what was the last Creed Brothers match? Like it was okay, you know? The last.
Well, yeah, it was with Imperium.
Yeah, it was okay.
You'd have to be horrible to not have a good match with Imperium.
Yeah. well, we'll see how good Grizzled Young Veterans are, because we know that the Creed brothers can have a good match with the right team.
All right, everybody. On that note, we got to wrap it up for today. The New Observer's going to be out on Thursday. A bunch of shows up on the front page. We had shows with both Dave and I and Dave and Garrett this weekend, so you can head up there and check those out as well. And that's it, everybody. We'll talk to you again after a while.